and the Dodgers before heading to Toronto, play the Blue Jays. So still plenty of baseball to be played here at Cleveland and elsewhere on your FM home for Cleveland Guardians baseball. If you listen to us on iHeartRadio from out of state, tell me where. I like putting people on our bureau chief map back here. And if you listen in the far-flung corners of Ohio, let me know, too. Drew is a new listener in Stony Point, North Carolina. Keith and Teresa listen in Key West, Florida. Josh listens in Tulsa. Andrew is a bureau chief in Newark. And Phil is in Valencia, California.
Hey, Alan. Hey, me and a buddy of mine are going to Minneapolis next summer to go see Metallica. And I've never been there before, so just wanted to kind of pick your brain on if any of you guys have been there and what you guys think of the city. Hate the show. Love you guys. Bye!
Get really high and go to the Mall of America.
Eat a dab cookie.
yeah.
Where were you last break?
There you go. I only went there for a job interview years ago.
I've been there a bunch of times for
I
comedy.
haven't spent a considerable amount of time.
It's a fun city. I couldn't tell you anything really going on, though. I haven't been there in 10 years, but I do remember one time I was staying with my buddy, and his girlfriend started singing Mike Polk's Stupid Effing Cat song after they had sex while I was on the couch, and I was like, hey, I know that guy.
Wait, your friend had sex with his girlfriend?
Yes.
And then she was singing the song?
Afterwards.
And you said, I know the guy whose song you're singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I thought it'd be funny to yell that out.
Mm-hmm.
And then his other roommate and his girlfriend got into a very loud, long fight all night long, and I could not sleep, so I just got up and went to a Denny's until they left. And then I made my friend drive to the gig that we were doing because I didn't sleep all night. I'm like, it was weird.
So, again, Bill's experience in Minneapolis probably not going to be similar to yours.
That's just one
under
of my
those
experiences.
circumstances,
I've been there
right?
a lot of times, but
Yeah.
that was a fun one.
He might be looking for more of something like a touristy there in Minneapolis. You know, Mary's been there a few times, though, haven't you?
I've done
did
comedy
Acme up there?
I've not. I've done like guest sets and showcases at Acme, but I've never headlined there. I went there 2 years in a row to basically do showcases, and then I was like, this isn't worth my time. It's really, really far away. I had driven both times.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and
Yeah, no wonder.
and they're just like you're just doing comedy in another state at that point. You know what I mean? It was
Well,
like,
it isn't, but you knew that. It's another state, Mary.
Yeah, but I was like, the first time I did it, I was like, oh, I'm getting on the road more. This is like 2017 maybe. And then I went back the following year, and it didn't have the same luster that it had the year before. And I was
The
like,
12-hour drive didn't seem the...
with stops and everything, it's like 15 hours,
15
and I was
hours.
driving straight to shows, and then I'd be there for a week unpaid. You know what I mean? So
At least
I
I
haven't
got
been back.
flown in.
Good for you.
You got to do that. This
Yeah.
was 97.
Wow.
Got flown in, man.
There was a
Oh.
They
club,
go, hey, we want to talk to you about coming up here to work. And I go, all right, fly me in.
there was a club I used to work there called the Joke Joint. It's actually
Oh, boy.
one of the
Like a juke joint, but jokes.
I worked the last time I worked there was right before I got hired for this job. So I was headlining there in December of 2012, and then got hired. But like you had asked me to come on the show the following week before you guys went on Christmas break, and so I was pretty excited.
Joke Joint Comedy Club.
And it is gone now.
Yeah.
But
But that was a chain for a little while, wasn't it? Joke
yeah,
Joint?
they had a few. Yeah,
They were like in Houston and Joke Joint.
it was a really fun club. It was a good time.
Poundcake, I don't think has ever been to Minneapolis.
I have not.
No. But they have a huge pride scene there. You should get up there.
Okay, well, I'll go, but it's not on my bucket list. I don't want to go anywhere that's colder than Ohio.
You know,
Go in
if
the
you go
summer.
there in the summertime, it'll be okay.
Okay. But
Oh, I got a great. I just remembered a thing that's in Minneapolis. They have a downtown porn store that has a giant golden penis you can ride. It's like a
bull?
like a fair game, like one of those like rocket ships outside of a grocery store.
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's a big old penis.
Huh.
So that's all I can think of. Because
And did
anytime I was
you
there, I was always
ride
there.
it?
I did not, but I took a picture with it.
Yeah. But you don't
So
remember
do
what
that.
you don't store that. You don't remember what it was called?
I just
The Smitten
Google
Kitten? Sex
porn-
World?
I think it's Sex World.
Love Doctor?
I'm pretty sure it's Sex World.
Venus Unveiled?
I'm going Sex World. Pretty sure. Sex
All right. They're open all day.
World.
They're having a grand remodeling event.
Ooh.
Maybe they got rid of the giant golden dong.
I don't think that's why people go there.
Come on. All right. Well, what are you going to do? A place called Sex World.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. They just put it out. You know, some places will try to come up with something kind of
cheeky.
Yeah, esoteric
clever,
or kind of erotic sounding, you know. There's a place called Bondesque or Venus Unveiled or Enchantrix or whatever. This place is called Sex World. That's pretty good. The Smitten Kitten stands with our community. If you can't count on the Smitten Kitten to be down with BLM, what can you count on up there in Minneapolis? No, I got flown up and then like taken to like a dinner or something, but I don't know anything about Minneapolis. It was like 25 years ago. And I was like, because I thought the same thing. I was like, I don't know. All I could think about was how cold Minneapolis was gonna be.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, if you want to hang out with my friends Chad and Nate and Brian, you can do that. Like, that's all I can really think. Like, I don't really know what's going on in the city, though. But Chad and Nate and Brian are really fun.
Mary should have flown private, a lot of people are saying.
Why didn't I think of
Way
that?
to go, stupid.
You know, $11,000 a day is a small price to pay for comfort, for convenience, for ease of use.
And selfies.
Selfies.
Oh, the selfies are the most important part to Poundcake.
That's number one. You can't get on a plane and not have people know you're flying on a private plane.
You can't have them know that?
No.
Oh.
You got to show you walking in with your huge fur and sunglasses and then have the lady on the tray present you with the lady with the tray present you with the champagne and then you take it from her, you know, you snatch it and then you sit down.
Snatch. Make sure you snatch.
Put your feet up
Snatch
on
up.
something. And then you clap whenever you need something and you got to record it all on your story.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I don't know if that answers any of your questions there about going to see Metallica. That's about a year away, Minneapolis, because I'm going to see them next year in Soldier Field.
But they're in Detroit in November, right?
Yeah, but it's a
this year?
it's a 2-year tour.
Yeah.
So next year, like, I don't want to go to Detroit. I want to see them at home. So I'm going to go see them next year. And he's talking about Minneapolis. That's after Chicago, I think. I think that's next August in Minneapolis. What, Cody?
Is there what scene is better, St. Paul or Minneapolis? Like what?
St. Paul's more chill. It's
it's so funny that they could be so close yet have totally different vibes.
Why does Twinsville, Ohio have the world's largest gathering of twins when it's the Twin Cities?
They didn't snatch it up.
Oh, boy.
They should have.
Snooze, you lose. See, it gets so cold that your body processes slow down and people aren't thinking as quickly. That's what I was worried about working up there. All right, let me talk to Margaret Cho here.
More than 6 but fewer than 10 minutes with somebody on the phone.
Hey, Margaret, how are you?
I am excited to be back out on tour. And so I'm talking to different people today, but this is 40 years in the making of this show. So it's live and living.
Explain kind of 40 years in the making, other than the obvious that we can take from that. How does that lay out for you?
Well, I've been a comedian for 40 years, which to me is even shocking because I look back at that and I'm like, really? That's true. But it actually is really true. I've been doing comedy since I was 14, which is super weird, but cool. And also having a lot of time after the, since and after the pandemic of not hugely touring as much as before. Now I've gotten sort of time to like really prepare and think about what I'd like to do as a comedian. So this show is like a product of that. I think everybody's so excited to go back out and do live performance and see live performance. So I'm taking advantage of that moment.
Not only that, but I always think of how, I guess for lack of a better word, how fortunate comedians can be in that whether they're writing for a show or whether they're doing their own show or whatever, their first love is always going to be the stage and doing stand-up. You can always go out and do that again.
Especially in times like these where we're on strike as we need to be. It's so important, but we can still have that creative outlet to go out there and do stand-up comedy. I mean, the stand-up comedy is like really, it's its own thing and it's its own art form. And it's relatively exclusive to people that really love to do it. A lot of people don't really know how to do it or want to do it. So we're kind of on a weird breed of people who really enjoy it or have to. I definitely have to. So I love doing it. And for me, it's something that will always be part of my life.
I always think of you, too, as somebody who I think encapsulates what a grind comedy kind of has to be. Because, 30 years ago, you get a sitcom. All American Girl was, what was that, 93, 94 probably?
94, yes.
94.
Yes.
So 30 years ago, and there's a lot of people, and maybe you did at the time, thought, man, it's easy street from here. I got a sitcom. That's what a lot of people were going for. But it really is the peaks and valleys, because you can never really plant your flag in any one thing. You've just got to keep going and grind it out.
Right. Absolutely. That's so true, because there is no real sense of like, oh, happily ever after. I mean, the only way that exists is if in like fairy tales, it's like you have to keep on working. And, that was this entry point into show business, which for me was like really great, but also really terrible too, because I didn't know what I was doing and nobody knew what they were doing. And it was the first Asian American family on television, and we had a lot of pressure to deal with because of that. But now I can look at it as being this very big, important event that was great, and it launched me to work much harder on my stand-up comedy, and I have had a gratifying career since then.
Is there a thing in your head? Are you ambivalent? Are you very much of two minds, of somebody who on one hand might be quote unquote expected to represent Asian Americans, and on the other hand, you are like, well, I'm going to represent Margaret Cho, and that's the best I can do?
Well, it's both. It's both.
Yeah.
Because I'm very proud to be now an elder in my community, especially from Asian American comedians. And I was able to inspire an entire generation of amazing comedians like Ali Wong and Aquafina and Ronnie Chang and Ken Jeong and, Bowen Yang and Joel Kim Booster and Sherry Cole. So many great people.
Yeah.
So I just, I think, this is my legacy, is really crass comedy for a community that never even sort of entered into the picture for that. So that's really great.
I think it's fair to say that maybe for a lot of stand-up comedians, and it might change the older they get or the more successful they get, but it's probably fair to say that a lot of stand-up comedians, just by virtue of the fact that it can be a very isolating kind of creativity, is that not necessarily glass half full type people. There's a difficulty, isn't there, in like not getting bitter. The more you see and the more you're kind of trying to call attention to comedically and otherwise, how do you keep yourself away from kind of going in darker directions when you don't want to?
I think it's really, you have to look at the history of comedy and where that has done comedy a disservice or where that's really hurt comedians. Like you look at the classic like Lenny Bruce, where he's just reading court transcripts on stage. That's classic, where he gets somebody so brilliant but got so bitter, and that's something that, like a very important thing to look at. Like the brilliance of comedians lends us to sensitivity. Like we are more overly sensitive people and then more likely to become bitter over time, because things that you want to happen don't necessarily happen in the way that you want them to. So it's about finding that even keel, really sort of looking at your own mental health, what I try to do. And so it's a big deal.
It's funny that you mentioned Lenny Bruce. I was reading Ladies and Gentlemen Lenny Bruce for like the third or fourth time last year. And it is funny now where some people in comedy will complain that they're like, you can't talk about anything anymore, when clearly it's just the way in which you talk about it. But it's worth pointing out, like, guys used to get arrested on stage for the stuff in certain cities that they were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Lenny Bruce would get arrested. George Carlin would get arrested. These guys that, we look at now and we think, oh, their comedy actually could be on, generally, I mean, of course, not everything, but could be on television, anytime. But they were huge outlaws. So it's really interesting how society really has changed.
And how are you feeling in general? You feeling good about life and about yourself? And I know you're happy to get back out on the road.
I did have a really wonderful time. Most comedians, we never really see our house. I've never really been in my house for all of this time. So I realized, I actually like my place and I like my life. And so it's a nice way to re-enter into the big life of a touring comedian in a way that's really special. So I'm glad.
Margaret Cho is coming back to Cleveland, the Mimi Ohio Theater. She's going to play October 7th. It is the Live and Livid tour, and she is both of those things, sometimes in equal measure, but always awesome. And good luck out there. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I appreciate your time, Margaret.
Thank you.
More than 6 but fewer than 10 minutes with somebody on the phone.
The Alan Cox Show on 100.